Hello fellow flyers, 6SRC here. Thanks for stopping by. What I'm going to show you today is how to set up a full span flap on your jet, or really any plane that has separate ailerons and flaps. This model is the basically the FMS 70mm T-45. They had released it a couple years ago. They've discontinued it, but you can get it still under the QT model brand name through AliExpress and maybe Banggood. It comes in different versions. You can get the full plug-and-play version or various kit versions. I'd recommend you get the kit version and install your own servos and ESC and EDF. All the versions come with the landing gear. You're better off installing your own servos. The ones that they send with it are kind of crappy. Anyhow, what full span flaps are is when the ailerons and the flaps will drop, typically on a landing approach, together. Hope you can kind of see that. And your ailerons will still work independently. Keep in mind though, as you deflect the ailerons, you do lose a little bit of travel, but you know, there's still plenty to control the plane. You know, so, and I'll show you again here from this back angle. You can see that they do move. You know, you have your normal control, the ailerons. You drop the flaps, and you'll be able to control how much the ailerons deflect. And then the ailerons will drop a little bit more. It lets you fly a little bit slower on landing. It'll also sometimes help keep the nose of the plane pitched up. And just from this other angle, you'll be able to see the movement. I don't have these flaps set at a particularly big deflection, but you know, that's kind of up to you guys how you want to set your plane up and how much you want to give it. You will definitely get some more. The flaps themselves are on a 2-second delay. The mix I'm going to show you for the ailerons doesn't offer the time delay, at least not on the Spektrum radios. For this model, I'm using a Lemon 10-channel receiver. To make this work, you're going to need at least a 7-channel receiver and a transmitter that'll handle up to 7 channels. So the Spektrum radios that are NX6s, for example, aren't going to be enough. But as long as you have at least 7 on your receiver and your transmitter, you're good. The first thing you need to do, though, is to make sure that your ailerons are independently wired. A Y cable is not going to work. You need to either fish out or just disconnect the Y cable. And I'm going to show you where you're plugging in your ailerons. But those are going to be each plugged into separate channels. The flaps can still go into your flaps channel. That's not going to change, and everything else is otherwise the same. Once you get that done, you're going to go into your radio. And we're going to go into system setup. Click yes to get in there. We're going to go to aircraft type, and you're going to choose this setting: 2 aileron, 1 flap, because you're going to have your ailerons into separate channels and just 1 flap. That's really the only thing you need to do as far as this menu item, and then just back out of it. The next thing you're going to do is go into system setup again. You might be able to get there from the prior screen, and go into channel assign, and this is going to tell you where to plug everything in. It's a little odd on this setup, but the radio here is telling us where to put it all. As you can see, the throttle channel is where the throttle is. The right aileron is going to go into the number 2 regular aileron channel. Elevator and rudder don't change. Now here's where it gets unusual. You're going to put in your flaps, which is going to be 1 Y cable, into the gear channel. Don't worry, you're going to have gear. Your left aileron is going to go into the auxiliary 1, and then your auxiliary 2 and 3 are going to stay the same. And you don't really need to do anything beyond that, except go to the next screen you're going to end up plugging in your gear, which for me on this radio is typically this A switch. I like to have my gear and flaps on my left hand because you're controlling the aileron and the elevator with your right, which is, you know, probably 90% of the flying. And I like to be able to flip up the gear and flip the flaps up, momentarily taking my hands off the stick and not having to worry about it. All right, so on this setup, I have my gear on my A channel, and I've assigned aux3 to A. aux3 on the radio is going to control channel, switch A, and then in your receiver, you're going to put your gear channel into aux3. I mean, it could be whatever channel you choose, whatever the first one available is. You know, I have it into aux3 on this particular receiver. I could have put it into aux2. I just wanted to leave a little bit of room here to give me some room to move. All right, so that's what you're going to do up to this point. All right, the next step, you're going to backpack out of this feature and setup menu. You're going to go back to your regular menu items, and this is where you're going to find how to do the mixing to get the ailerons to drop. At this point, your radio is set up like a normal plane where you have separate channels for your ailerons. A lot of people do that because they want to be able to trim out their ailerons separately. You know, if you have them both on a Y cable, if your right one is up a couple millimeters and you go to trim it down, well, the left side's going to go up a couple. You know, it's like kind of a give and take. So you're never going to be able to totally trim them out unless you do them on separate channels. It's not always necessary, but some people like to do that. But anyhow, your plane now would normally operate as a regular plane. You should be able to flip the flaps down, and you're going to have just the flaps going down, and your ailerons will work separately. In order to get this to work on the ailerons too, which we're going to go to is your next item here is mixing. And you're going to create a new mix. This is mix 1. You see I have I don't have anything on the elevator to flap. I don't think I really need it on this plane. I haven't up to this point. Mix 1, you're going to cursor over to this item. You're going to click around until you get to flap. This is going to be the primary or the master. And what you want that to do is to control the ailerons too when you flip it down. Now in this setup, I'm setting it up on the left aileron. And on the offset, on this particular plane, I'm doing -80. And this is going to be my, I'll call my first click of, or first down movement of flaps. I'll call it like the takeoff flaps, or you can just do it that way. And I've assigned that to switch, on the switch to switch D. Like I said, I like to have my flaps up here where you don't have to take your hands off the rail controls. And then I've highlighted this middle button here. This middle button is, it'll let you choose different ones on the radio. It's only active where there's a dark colored in box. So that's the first setting on this particular switch. It's that middle switch. Remember, the switches go 0, 1, 2, so the middle one is number 1. Now, that's going to get you your first tick of flaps. What you want to do is back out of this, and you're going to go into mix 2. And you're going to do the same thing, flaps and left aileron. And on this one, you're just going to adjust it so the ailerons drop a little bit further. You know, so in this case, I'm not having them drop a lot. And the amount that you're going to put in there is going to vary depending on how much you want them to drop. The numbers that are shown there are a little unusual, but it's going to vary on your radio. You see they both go down equally here. And remember, the flaps are on a delay. So as I click it down, it'll go slower. And then when I click it back up, the ailerons are just going to react instantly. And then they go back to normal. Now you'll notice on these two settings, I'm doing this only with left aileron. Now why this will work on both sides when I'm only putting a mix on the left side, I don't know. It took me hours to figure this out. I was trying everything logically and trying to mix in the right and the left and trying all sorts of different combinations. I would try stuff, walk away, try stuff, walk away, and then finally I just tried this combination just using the left aileron with the mix, and it worked. I really don't know why. Maybe the left is considered like the master and it's controlling both. But in any event, it does work. But of course, verify stuff on your radio and verify it on the ground and in the workbench just to make sure. But that's how you get it. All right, flyers. So just to summarize, that's how you do the setup to get the full span flaps. This is a DX8 Gen 2 radio. It does have some of the smart technology if you download the firmware and update it with respect to the smart receivers that are coming out now. I'm sure like the NX10s and NX20s and all are much more sophisticated. Some of them might even have these like full span flap as a pre-setting, kind of like the Spektrum now. The DX8 has flaperons as an option for planes that only have ailerons and you want to use them as flaps. They don't have this flap full span flap setup, but some of the newer radios may. So if you have an older radio, not that the DX8 Gen 2 is that old, but it's not the newest one, so this is how to do it. But test everything on the ground. As I've said, when you start deflecting your ailerons down, you do lose a little bit of movement on them, so you really only want to engage this when you're landing. You can adjust the deflection so that you don't lose too much. You might only want to do one tick. I did two. You don't have to put that second mix in, and your ailerons would just stay the way they were and the flaps would drop more. You can use trial and error, see what you like. You might want to just, when you're putting this on a plane, don't mate in a new plane with all this stuff. Mate in it very generic, no gyro, no nothing, and just take it up, get the feel of it, trim it out, and then experiment a little bit more. When you do engage this after you're used to your plane, go ahead and get pretty high up and don't go too fast. Flaps aren't made to be used at high speed. Full scale planes don't engage the flaps when they're doing 500 miles an hour. It'll just rip them off the plane. So they're not meant to be used when the plane is traveling at speed. But slow down, get up high, and engage these full span flaps and see how your plane reacts. If it does pitch the nose up a little bit, that's good. That's kind of what you want. Some people have put like I guess you call them tailerons, and they can also basically use your elevators separately as almost like ailerons, and that will add some more control, but that's an additional complicated matter. Anyhow, hope you like this video. Give it the thumbs up if you like it. See you next time.